Okay, we're almost through school signs a little bit. School crosswalk. That's what you'll see. Remember the school zones. This one's yellow, but again, most of the time in Alberta, they're going to be really fluorescent. Green is mostly. Sometimes blue, but I think that's in the past. It's more so definitely school zones are either yellow or green. And that one's telling you that there's a crosswalk. You see those teachers or whoever it is crossing, that means you're entering a crosswalk zone. This one's also saying right on there, it says there's a school zone ahead and that the speed limit is going to go to 30 kilometers per hour. School speed limit 30 kilometers. So that's actually the same sign almost, except it also has some additional times and hours. So those are both saying the same thing. You're going into a school zone and it's going to go to 30 kilometers an hour. But this one also says of what hours that the speed limit is in effect, from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. So you need to be mindful of different hours of the day that those speed limits could apply. Here's that other one, school zone. This one's blue, but like I said, most of the time it's going to be green. Another one is a school bus stop ahead. So be mindful, especially if it's in that morning time hour or after school hour, be mindful that there could be a bunch of school buses stopping and there could be a lot of kids crossing that walk. So you definitely want to slow down or stop completely ahead as you enter up to school bus. Okay, school areas. Again, you may very likely be asked a question on your test about school zones and school areas. So when you see this sign, you must be cautious that children may be walking along the crosswing or even a highway in rural areas. You often have children, like schools could be right located on a highway. So really got to pay attention to when you're in those school area zones and which speed limit you need to go through. Most of the time, it's going to be 30 kilometers an hour unless they tell you otherwise. But yeah, when you're driving through these areas, you have to be extra cautious. And you also are not allowed to pass in school area zones because say you and two vehicles are driving alongside each other and one of them stops suddenly and you keep going, he could have stopped for a kid that was running out, right? So, or he could be going generally slow and you don't want to zoom past somebody in a school zone because they could be going slower because they see something that you don't. Or they're preparing to stop at a crosswalk coming up because they see a group of kids coming and you don't see those group of kids through his vehicle. Or say you're beside a big truck, right? So you definitely got to be safe and careful with those. So all the stuff on school zones starts on page 30 and it shows you the times. So it says school zone areas and then it lists those times that are in Alberta. So have a look at those and maybe memorize them. As there could be, they could ask you what time of day are school zones in effect. So when you pass this sign, that means that, and there's a speed sign attached to it, as I mentioned, that means you're in a school zone and you must stay in 30 kilometers per hour, less than 30 kilometers per hour, and even be prepared to stop in a school zone. You could be stopping suddenly. That's why we keep it at 30 to make sure that it's safe in case, you know, other pedestrians or children are around. Speed. So the speed for both urban and rural school zones is always going to be 30 kilometers an hour unless they post otherwise. They could reduce it more, but the maximum you're going to go through a school zone ever is 30 kilometers. And it could tell you the times of school zones. So here are generally these are the times, like morning, lunch, afternoon. But on this sign here, it shows you that it's their whole school zone, their school times are 7:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. That 17 is in like army time. That actually means 5 p.m. So just be mindful, different areas or different towns can have different hours in school zones as well. And then playground zones. They are very similar to school zones. However, you can be in, they're similar in that it's maximum 30 kilometers per hour and there's usually children present, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there's a school. So these playground zones, you'll usually see them around like baseball diamonds, around recreational centers, things like that. So it doesn't necessarily mean the exact same thing as a school zone. You can have playground zones where there's children actively playing in the area. So that's same thing, maximum 30. And playground restrictions are in effect every single day. So this isn't just Monday to Friday. Playground zones are every single day, including the weekends. So, and that's because, you know, children are using those areas, those recreational areas and those parks, they're using them on the weekend. So be mindful, those school zones also, or those playground zones will always be 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. generally, or 1 hour after sunset. The sign may say otherwise for times, but as a default, these are usually the time that the playground zone restrictions are in effect. Have to stay within that speed limit. And again, same as school zones, you can't pass another vehicle in a playground zone. So even if somebody's, you know, trucking along at like 25 or barely doing 20 and you gotta get impatient, you're late for work and you're like, oh, hurry up. You can't go and zoom around them and pass them. You gotta just wait patiently because those playground zones and school zones will end soon. So you gotta make sure that you get through them safely and then you can resume up to your regular speed limit. So yeah, not permitted to pass or attempt to pass other vehicles. That's a really important one.